The Srivijaya Empire. By the end of the 7th century, Srivijaya had done something remarkable. It had turned one of the most treacherous maritime regions on Earth into a controlled network of ports, way stations, and toll points. The Maharaja's ships patrolled the waters, and his envoys collected tribute not just in gold and spices, but in something far more valuable: prestige. This prestige would soon become a currency of its own, one that could be traded with kings and emperors far beyond Southeast Asia. But Srivijaya was more than a toll collector. The kingdom understood that the flow of ships was also the flow of ideas. And in the 7th to 9th centuries, no idea was more powerful across Asia than Buddhism. At the height of its power, Srivijaya became a magnet for pilgrims, scholars, and translators. Chinese records tell us of monks who made the long and dangerous voyage from the Tang dynasty's ports to Palembang before continuing to the sacred sites of India. The most famous of these was Yijing, a Chinese Buddhist monk who spent 6 months in Srivijaya in the year 671. Yijing wrote that Srivijaya was a great center of Buddhist learning, with over 1,000 monks studying the Mahayana tradition. He advised Chinese pilgrims to spend at least a year there before traveling on to India, to refine their knowledge and learn Sanskrit. His writings give us one of the clearest contemporary portraits of the kingdom, a bustling, cosmopolitan port city where the scent of incense mixed with the smell of salt water, where traders from Arabia, India, and China exchanged goods in open-air markets, and where the chants of monks carried over the river at dawn. The Maharaja himself patronized monasteries and maintained close ties with Buddhist centers across Asia. Gold leaf inscriptions and stone carvings found in Sumatra and the Malay Peninsula show that Srivijayan rulers saw themselves not just as kings, but as protectors of the Dharma, holders of the Buddhist cosmic order. Srivijaya's power was never about direct occupation. Instead, it ruled through a mandala system, a political network of influence. This meant surrounding itself with semi-autonomous tributary states, whose rulers acknowledged the Maharaja's supremacy. These states, from the Malay Peninsula to western Borneo, acted as both buffers and partners. They provided resources, manpower, and safe harbors for Srivijayan fleets. The empire also married diplomacy to spectacle. Envoys from Srivijaya arrived in foreign courts with lavish gifts, ivory carvings, camphor oil, exotic birds, and gold-threaded cloth. In return, they received not just political alliances but spiritual recognition, reinforcing the Maharaja's image as both a worldly ruler and a spiritual king. Trade in Srivijaya's time was not a trickle, it was a tide. Chinese ceramics, Persian glass, Indian textiles, and Arabian frankincense flowed through its harbors. The empire taxed every cargo and controlled critical choke points like the Bangka Strait and the Karamata Strait, ensuring that no major merchant fleet could bypass its reach. One of Srivijaya's most profitable monopolies was on aromatic woods and resins, prized in China and the Middle East for religious rituals. Camphor from Sumatra was worth more than gold by weight. Nutmeg and cloves from the Maluku Islands passed through Srivijaya's warehouses before heading west, earning the kingdom a reputation as the keeper of the world's most exotic luxuries. Yet the empire's dominance was never absolute. The Mataram Kingdom on Java, rich in rice and stone monuments, was a constant rival. The Khmer Empire in Cambodia watched the maritime trade with interest. Even Chinese dynasties, while trading with Srivijaya, understood that their dependence on its ports gave the Maharaja dangerous leverage. Piracy remained a constant threat. Srivijaya fought fire with fire, recruiting former raiders into its navy and turning them into loyal enforcers. The empire's control of the seas relied on both the promise of protection and the fear of swift retribution. By presenting itself as a center of Buddhist scholarship, it attracted not only monks, but also political legitimacy. A ruler who could claim the protection of the Buddha had a moral authority that rival kings could not easily challenge. Inscriptions from the 8th and 9th centuries show Srivijaya sending diplomatic missions to the Pala Empire in India, which ruled over the great Buddhist universities like Nalanda. In return, Indian scholars and artisans traveled to Sumatra, enriching its culture. This exchange created a unique blend of Indian, Malay, and Chinese influences, visible in art, architecture, and language. By the 10th century, Srivijaya's influence stretched from Sumatra across the Malay Peninsula and deep into Borneo. Its fleets could project power thousands of kilometers from its capital. Tribute poured in not just from Southeast Asia, but from as far as Sri Lanka. Chinese Song dynasty records list Srivijaya among their most important trading partners. This was Srivijaya at its zenith, a floating empire whose capital was a river city alive with the creak of moored ships, the clatter of goods unloaded onto docks, and the hum of multiple languages being spoken at once. Monks in saffron robes walked past Persian merchants in silk, while local fishermen brought in fresh catches for the bustling markets. Yet empires built on tides are always at the mercy of changing currents. The next century would bring challenges from both near and far, and Srivijaya would need all its skill to survive them. In the next part, we will see how the empire's fortunes shifted, how rivals struck at its heart, and how the tide that once carried its ships began to turn. Subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of this story.